everybody, it are my birthday. Sorry, that's the birthday song that my sister and I sing to each other on our birthdays. And yes, it is my birthday, and today I have things to celebrate, sort of, I guess. So the first thing I want to do is give a nice birthday toast to 83 subscribers. Woohoo! Yes, finally, after like 2.5 hours, I can have my coffee. But I also have cake for later, so yay. So today, I am still working away on the Satan Sleuth. Wow, such a den of misogyny and homophobia. I keep telling myself it's a product of its time, but it's really just bad. So I'll be back in a couple of days with a review of that. That'll be my last one for Satanic September. I was thinking about possibly doing a, like, Metal Monday and talking about the Devil and Daniel Faust, or the Devil and Daniel Mouse, Faust, maybe American Satan, which I've kind of low-key got an obsession with, but I couldn't get through Faust. I tried. It was awful. It was so bad. And, you know, I even tried the thing that I do where I'll have the audiobook playing, or, you know, in this case, the LibriVox, because it's in the public domain, and then try to follow along. But the translation is so completely different between the LibriVox recording and the copy that I have that, I mean, it's just unintelligible. So, no Faust. Maybe I'll get to it next year. Maybe I'll do Satanic September again, but... So instead, I went to, speaking of public domains, I looked up some of the short stories about deals with the devil. And I found, and of course, because the Devil and Daniel Mouse is one of my all-time favorite cartoons. It's on YouTube here. I'll put a link to it in the doobly-doo. I wanted to look at the source material, and I found The Devil and Daniel Webster, which was by Stephen Vincent Benet, and it looks like it was published in the 1930s, 1937, from the collection 13 O'Clock Stories of Several Worlds. And it's a little bit of a riff, I guess. It was inspired, apparently, by The Devil and Daniel... try that again. The Devil and Tom Walker by Washington Irving. So I went back and I read the Washington Irving story as well. Now, in this case, these guys are farmers, not musicians, but they still, in both cases, they make a deal with the devil to have some prosperity. And eventually, of course, I mean, you can't make a deal with anybody without it eventually coming back to bite you on the ass. And if you make a deal with somebody that seems too good to be true, it probably is. So these are both, now, the Washington Irving story, I've made it clear I don't generally like a lot of stories that were published before about, 1950 or so. But this one was kind of a fun read. And it's about this guy who lives in absolute abject misery. He's very poor. His wife is an awful person. He's got this terrible starving horse that looks out over everything. Although why they don't just eat the horse, I don't know. So he goes and he comes across this guy, and he finds a man sitting on a rock, and he says, well, you know, I want to be more prosperous, of course, and makes a deal with him. And then he becomes the richest man in town. And then he becomes a moneylender. He goes to the city, becomes a moneylender. Now, this is an interesting sort of morality that you get punished for exploiting people in those times. Because in the Bible, usury is actually a sin. I mean, do you remember the part in the Bible where Jebus beat the crap out of the moneylenders? Yet we don't consider doing that now. And so eventually a guy's debt comes around, and Tom just won't give him a break, and excuse me, and sorry, I'm trying to review this because I read it a few days ago. Oh, and he also tries to sort of make up for his time by becoming a church-going guy, right? So then he comes to somebody comes to him, gets a loan that he can't pay, and Tom says, well, the devil take me, you know, if I've made any money off of you. And of course the devil shows up to collect his due. And what I enjoyed about this one was really just the way that Irving, he creates a mood, and he creates a very, how do I explain this? I enjoy the short form stories because of how an author can put detail and create time and place and have something happen. You have a beginning, you have an end, you have cause and effect, but do it in such a short amount of time. And it's obviously, it's a morality tale, always has been, always will be. But it was just a really fun, little enjoyable read. Yeah, and it's New England, and it's Washington Irving, and it's just one of those little bits of Americana that that has sort of, I think it's been so popular for so long, you kind of forget where the roots of where you read that. And the same thing with The Devil and Daniel Webster, which came out in the 30s. And this is the story of, again, a farmer who makes a deal with the devil so that he can become more prosperous. And this time, instead of the devil actually taking him and going off to hell, he gets in touch with a lawyer, and the lawyer successfully argues for his soul and wins. And the basis of the lawyer's argument is just, well, this is a good American, how dare you? And it works for some reason. It's pretty funny. And I hadn't read the story before, but I am familiar with the Devil and Daniel Mouse version of it, which is one of my all-time favorites. It's about a mouse who's a musician, and she makes a deal with the devil, again, to become famous, which, you know, I mean, a lot of musicians probably wish they could. And so after she becomes famous, it's time for the devil to come and take her soul. But this time, instead of a musician, or instead of a lawyer arguing for her soul, it's her old bandmate, Daniel Mouse. And Daniel Mouse makes he plays a cute little song, and that is enough to charm the jury into letting her go. So that's one of my all-time favorites. I love that one, and I like to rewatch it around Halloween. All right, so Satanic September deals with the devil. Now, the other thing that I wanted to look at today, this being my birthday and a celebration, is one of the tags going around right now is the celebrity tag, which was started by Books, Songs, and Other Stories. And hang on a sec. Sorry, that should be Books, Songs, and Other Magic. I had to look that up. And he called it the Cult of Celebrity tag. Now, nobody tagged me, obviously, but I do want to do this one because I think it's an interesting bunch of questions to ask. And this is Books, Songs, and Other Magic's original tag, so he came up with it. So the questions are as follows. There are 6 questions. So the first one: have you met an author that you liked? Now, I think he means, you know, fun with modifiers. He means, was it somebody whose work you enjoyed that you eventually met? Not, did you like the person? But so I'm going to say there were 2, actually. And, oh, come on. Sorry. There were 2, actually. The first one was Margaret Atwood, who's one of my all-time favorite writers. And I saw her at a reading at the Stratford Festival in sometime in the mid-aughts. It was a long time ago. It was probably around 2005. And she's the tiniest little person. She is so cute. And I got up to, I waited in line for some time. And when I got there, I had a total fangirl moment. And I told her that I loved her work and I'd loved it for a long time, and that she was the reason I wanted to be a writer in the first place. And she said, oh, well, that's sweet. And I was like, oh boy, okay. She was like all kinds of uncomfortable. And she signed my copy of The Handmaid's Tale. So I'm quite the proud owner of a hardback copy with my name misspelled in it. Yes. I also, another one that I enjoyed, an author that I enjoyed meeting, was George Eliot Clarke. He also read at Stratford probably a year or two after I saw Margaret Atwood, and where am I going with that? He read after Margaret Atwood, and he read on a bill with Janet Sears, who was amazing as well. Janet Sears, by the way, if you're interested, she wrote a play called Harlem Duet, which is a reimagining of the love story from Othello, and it's probably one of the best plays I've ever seen. It's absolutely wonderful. I hope at some point it gets put on again, because it was fantastic. Okay, so Harlem Duet, Janet Sears, and George Eliot Clarke read from his book Execution Poems, and I think he read some of his novel. The novel's called George and Rue, and the poetry collection that was released at that time was called Execution Poems. And there's a really interesting backstory to that. George Eliot Clarke discovered that these two fellows, George and Rufus, were two of the last people who were executed in Canada. And it was a night of drinking and debauchery and whatever they were doing, and they robbed a taxi driver and murdered him, and they ended up being hanged for it. And I think they got something like $50. Like, it was just one of those incredibly sad, terrible waste kind of crimes of desperation and poverty that you hear about all the time, right? But it was one of those things that I guess it wasn't exactly a family secret, but it wasn't anything that he had known about until he started looking into his family tree and discovered this. And Execution Poems, by the way, if you like poetry, is an absolutely amazing collection. And then later, what's fun is that a friend of mine graduated from the University of Waterloo maybe a year or two after I saw George Eliot Clarke read, and Clarke was like the keynote speaker, and he was getting an honorary degree from Waterloo at the time. And we were wandering around in the Student Life Center afterwards, and George Eliot Clarke was there, and he stopped and chatted with us for a minute. So he was a really nice guy, and it was fun to meet him. So those are the two authors that I've seen read and that I really enjoyed and got to chat with. So question number 2, do you seek out signed copies of books? I like to go to author readings where they're going to be signing books. So yes, but I'm not going to look for like collector's editions or things that are signed or anything. I like to actually be there with them signing it. And I have a few signed books. I saw Douglas Copeland read at the University of Waterloo. I think he signed my Microsource, but I'm not 100% sure. Because I can't even remember. It was so long ago. I have the book signed by Janet Sears and George Eliot Clarke. Margaret Atwood signed. I have something signed by Michael Ondaatje, who read at Stratford around the same time. Oh, and Lawrence Hill. Lawrence Hill read from his book, The Book of Negroes, which is the title in Canada. I think it's called... It's got a different title in the U.S. I think it's called something like Someone Knows My Name, something like that. And he was really nice, too. Those are all the signed books I have. Those are all the ones that I remember off the top of my head. So, yeah, I like to go to author signings. Next question. Are you interested in an author's personalities, lifestyles, and opinions? Sometimes. I think it's sometimes interesting to see them in interviews and to see you know, I mean, if they have an interesting take on politics or what have you, it's okay. But I think, you know, they're authors. I think I'm more interested in what they have to say about writing and about their books. And I would much rather talk to them about their books than I would about, you know, politics or world events or whatever. And sometimes I think, and this kind of leads into the next question, is there an author whose books you love that you think you wouldn't like personally? I'm going to say probably most of them. I mean, everybody has obviously good points and bad points, but there are some things that authors say, and it's just like, oh, come on. Yeah. I mean, I enjoy following Stephen King's tweets, and I find it amusing some of the things that he says about, obviously, Donald Trump and just the absolute circus that is American politics right now. But he also tweeted support of J.K. Rowling's latest Robert Galbraith book. And, I mean, that name was taken from a guy who literally tortured gay and trans kids. I mean, come on. We can only support somebody so far who's so completely clueless. Like, So that was a bit uncomfortable. So the next one is there an author now dead you would have liked to have met? And I'm going to 100% say Jack Ketchum. A lot of the people that I know from the indie horror community and on Facebook, they had nothing but wonderful things to say about him. He was, by all accounts, just a really nice man. He was very supportive of new authors, and I'm really sad that I ever got to meet him. And rest in peace, Dallas. I hope you're, you know, out there somewhere and still loving stories. And I think even though I've only read a couple of his books, he gave a really good lecture called Writing from the Wound, which you can find here on YouTube. And that has really, I found that really, was really, really good advice about writing. And he said, you know, write about what scares you, write about what breaks your heart. So the last one, is there an author still alive that you would like to meet? I would love to see Stephen King in, you know, in a book signing, but I would also like, this is going to sound so weird, but I would also like to just, you know, walk the dogs with him or something, because I love his posts about his corgis. Like that's so completely amusing. And if I met him in, you know, a diner or something, I know he wouldn't want to talk about writing, right? So what else do you talk about? So, but I'm always here to talk about pets, and I don't have any pets. So other people's pets are my pets. So Stephen King's corgis are now my corgis. Everybody whose pets I see are now my pets, because I don't get to have any pets. Anyway, I think that's it for the celebrity tag. If you're, I'll put again the link down in the doobly-doo. And I have cake waiting for me and ice cream melting. So yes, it's my birthday. Welcome to everybody who's relatively new here, my 83 subscribers, woo woo. And I hope you're reading lots of horror. Enjoy my birthday. Go get a treat for yourself. Have a great day.